Hello, I'm Jim Ellis, Assistant Managing Editor at Bloomberg Businessweek magazine, and I'm happy to have Dr. Praveen Kumar today, who is the head of the Telangana Social Welfare Residential Educational Institutions. That's a long, long title to say he's the man who runs a series of extremely important schools for the very poor and marginalized communities in India. He's doing a fantastic job, and it's a very interesting story that says something about the need for and equality in education and the way that a pretty amazing man is doing something about that. Thank you for being with me, Dr. Kumar. First, I
Thank
wanted
you,
to
Jim.
start off. Yes. I wanted to start off by asking you about the switch in careers that you made. You have a very unusual background in the sense that, trained in veterinary science, you worked as in law enforcement and regional police chief for many years, and then you ended up at, the Kennedy School at Harvard. But when you went back to India, you had a very dramatic change in what you wanted to do. What happened?
Thank you for asking me this question, Jim. And let me at the very outset let me say that I'm really excited and then feel honored to be part of this Bloomberg Equality Summit. Yes, I was a law enforcement officer. I was a cop, very senior cop for almost 17 years. But I was not very satisfied with what I had achieved in those 17 years. And then I wanted to have a much deeper and then wider impact so that I can touch many more lives, particularly the people who are coming from the oppressed classes, people who are marginalized, underserved, underprivileged. So before I switched my career, I wanted to hang my boots for a while and then join the best universities in the world. And then I was fortunate enough to get into Harvard Kennedy School of Government. So there I met a lot of amazing people who left their army jobs, people who left their corporate, very senior corporate executives. And then I met a lot of religious leaders and then transformational leaders and then who are trying to do great things in the globe, and then they came out of they came out of their comfort zones and then they entered into the zones of discomfort to make the world a better place. So I was really inspired by the lives of these people. And then my professors were, I give a larger credit to my professors who taught me in Harvard. So I came back without wasting much of time after my graduation. I came back and then I decided, so whatever I could not do as a law enforcement officer, so I wanted to do as an educator. So that's how I wanted to join the education sector. And then this has been my ninth year in education sector. What an amazing time. So I
I
think
mean,
this
the
9 years
schools
is.
that the schools that you operate are really, really unusual because when a lot of people think of residential schools or boarding schools, they think of something that's extremely affluent and sort of people who are at the top of the pyramid, and sort of your organization, takes schools for people who are often in the marginalized classes and says, you are worth educating and you can be something. That's a real big change from traditionally how those groups were treated, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes. So residential education is that is boarding schools or residential schools. In they are again contextual. In some contexts, residential schools are not very well appreciated. In some other context, very affluent people, high and mighty people who have very deep pockets, they send their children to residential schools where poor people cannot even in their dreams afford to go there. So, but our state government in India, our state government, we have a very good policy wherein we give all the best possible facilities which only the rich can afford to. So we give all these facilities to the poorest of the poor, but talented students. So talent is not anybody's exclusive feature. So everybody is unique, and then everybody has the talent, and everybody has the right to have better opportunity. So that's how our government for the last 30 years has been running these boarding schools, which are popularly called as residential schools, for hundreds and thousands of poorest of the poor children. So all these schools, we are right now. I am currently taking care of 200,000 students who are studying in residential school. We start our journey in fifth grade, and then we leave them after college. So why residential? Yes, residential is extremely important for the poorest of the poor students, because the ecosystem in which they are brought up is not very supportive. The parents are very poor, and then they are in a constant survival mode, migrating to different places, far off places, in search of better livelihoods. And then some are homeless, some are orphans, some are semi-orphans. Either the father is dead or mother is dead. So, and then famished, no proper food. And the evening, some of the social evils like drunkenness and all other undesirable evils, take over the atmosphere in the community, in the neighborhoods. So how do we protect the children from these toxic ecosystems? So we thought it's better we rescue these children from the toxic ecosystem and then place them in a very protected bubble without segregating too much from the parents, and keep them for 220 days with us, and 145 days with the parents. And then parents are free to visit these kids every month, once or twice, and they can talk to their parents whenever they want to. But here the beauty is that teachers act as loco parents. Teachers act as the parents. They not only stay at the place of their posting, but they act as parents. They meet the emotional and intellectual needs of the students. And there is so much of demand from the poorest of the poor communities to get into these residential schools. And state is paying for everything. Students do not have to pay even single penny from their pockets to be in our institutions. It's a plate to slate approach completely. Yeah.
Now, now your students are both male and female. I mean, do the parents like the notion that they can get their sort of daughters educated as well, and that they're treated equally with the male students?
Absolutely. We are more, female centric than male centric. For every one boy, we have three girls. So because girls are more marginalized among the marginalized. So girls, their voice is, not given due importance. And that's the reason why. And then their dreams are buried before they are realized in most of the places, in not just in India, but most of the places in the world. So we thought we should focus on the girls, because if you educate a girl, you are educating not just the girl, but not just the family, but entire neighborhood. So that's why we focus more on girls, and then 60% of our students are girls, and then 40% are boys. So we have right now I have 200,000 students under my direct control. Yeah.
Now, do you how important are role models, particularly for these students, to see people who have gone on and become successes? Is that something that you try to do to make sure that they recognize that there is a payoff and that there are people who've done this before?
I think role model is a very, very important concept in motivating the students, particularly from underprivileged backgrounds where they live segregate. They lived their ancestors, their fathers, their parents. They lived in a very segregated manner. So the societies historically they have segregated them for various reasons. I don't want to go into that particular problem, but coming back to the schools. So the role models are extremely important. Particularly, we bring the role models who are from their own ecosystem. So that the children can easily relate to these people, and then whatever role model wants to say, it can be easily absorbed by the students in a huge manner. So we bring in a lot of role models. We bring the doctors, we bring in the engineers, we bring the CEOs, and then we bring in the bureaucrats, and then we bring in some great sports persons. So because the another important reason why we bank on role model heavily is the poor people lack social capital, which rich people has that. Rich people have a lot of social capital. They have huge networks. So all that their net worth is decided by their networks. But whereas in poor communities, the social capital is lacking. So the best social capital, the best way of seeding the social capital is to bring the role models day in and day out. The role models are introduced to these children as mentors, as philosophers, as guides, so on and so forth. And after some time, what happens is the children aspire to become role models, and eventually they become role models. And then having too many role models in a community makes a new normal. In an impoverished community, a new normal is created. Every guy next door is a role model. So a new normal is created. After that, success becomes inescapable. That is the kind of theory on which we are banking upon.
I was really fascinated by one of the projects that you had instituted at your schools, which was the Mount Everest project, which I was sort of shocked that, sort of students would actually attempt to climb Mount Everest, but also to see that it was done. Tell me a little about why that was, because that's the really important message.
Thank you very much for asking this question. Yes, it was really an audacious expedition. Normal times we would not have done that. But let me tell you very honestly, poor people have a lot of energy in them. Everybody has energy, but particularly poor people have a lot of energy. They have a lot of endurance because day in and day out, in search of livelihood, entire family goes into agricultural fields, entire family goes to forests to fetch some firewood. I'm talking about the poorest of the poor communities. Entire family works hard as an unit to survive. As a result, they develop a lot of survival skills. When these kids come to school, they always look for opportunities to express themselves in the field, in the playground, and in the classrooms, whatnot, everywhere. But unfortunately, historically, there have been a lot of structural barriers to in realizing this kind of innate potential which poor people have in them. So for example, so you have no proper classrooms, you have poor staffing patterns in the schools, or you have nobody talking to the children with open heart, and nobody is there to encourage them, and nobody is there to give them opportunity. Then we thought for a while, no, this cannot last longer. If you have to capture the imagination of poor people, if you have to show them a new direction, you need to tell them that you are capable of doing impossible things as well. You have that potential. That's how we trained all 120 130 kids in basic rock climbing, then basic mountaineering, then advanced mountaineering, and then we had sent these kids to the Mount Everest. So what I really believe, what I deeply believe, is the gap between rich and poor is just an opportunity and support. If you give an opportunity and if you give support, poor people can go to any extent, including Mount Everest. In fact, this girl and a boy who scaled Mount Everest in 2014, on April 18th, in an avalanche, around 18 people died in Nepal side. I asked that girl, hey, 18 people died within 5 minutes in an avalanche. So from Nepal side, it is closed, and these people were climbing from Chinese side. So I asked them, would you come back? Because I think there seem to be a lot of dangerous things happening there. You know what this girl told me, sir? I am the girl. I am from the poorest of the poor community. We have been recklessly stereotyped for ages that we are not capable of doing anything great. But I would like to prove this world wrong. I've been trained sufficiently well, and the government is there to support me if anything goes wrong. So I would like to go to Mount Everest and then tell the world that girls are capable of doing anything, even if they are from underprivileged backgrounds. So what that girl did was something amazing in this world. So girls can do anything. We wanted to prove this naysayers wrong. We wanted to break all the negative stereotypes which have been recklessly imposed upon these poorest of the poor kids. That's how we conceived Mount Everest. And then that Mount Everest expedition, and this Mount Everest expedition, the success on Mount Everest expedition, and Malavat Purna, the girl, happened to be the youngest ever female to have scaled Mount Everest in the history. So this has become a reference point. It is like a watershed moment in the history of marginalized sections, I feel. Yes.
That is an amazing and inspirational story, Dr. Kumar. Thank you for being with us today, and keep up the great work. It shows why you're a Bloomberg game changer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim. Thanks for it.